A supposed comet is catching the attention of some of the nation's most renowned scientists.
September 2025. Just as Mars slipped into opposition, a moment when the red planet blazes brightest in our night sky, astronomers witnessed something no one was prepared for. The interstellar object known as 3I/ATLAS didn't simply flare in brightness, as comets sometimes do when ice sublimates. Instead, it performed a maneuver that defied every expectation. Its path, once predictable, twisted as if the object itself had taken control. Telescopes caught the sudden change in trajectory, a deviation so precise it suggested intent rather than accident. For a fleeting moment, the scientific community held its breath. Was this a bizarre trick of physics, some exotic mechanism hidden within the ice and dust of an alien body? Or was it something far more profound? The first sign that our solar system had just been visited not by a drifting relic of interstellar space, but by something engineered? The appearance of interstellar visitors has always carried an air of mystery. In 2017, the strange cigar-shaped object called Oumuamua streaked through the solar system, too fast and too brief for humanity to catch in detail. 2 years later, in 2019, Comet Borisov arrived, its icy coma marking the first confirmed interstellar comet. Both were extraordinary, but they left more questions than answers. What processes fling such objects across star systems? How many of them are out there? And why did they appear within just a handful of years of each other, after millennia with none ever detected? By the time 3I/ATLAS was first tracked, astronomers had already learned to pay attention. It was not just another visitor. From the very start, ATLAS looked wrong. Its chemical profile, measured through spectrographs, revealed a richness in carbon dioxide far beyond any normal comet. Stranger still was the discovery of nickel in its tail. Nickel appearing without iron, a baffling combination that had no precedent in comet science. This imbalance defied the models of planetary formation. It suggested a different origin, perhaps a different chemistry of solar systems beyond our own. Then came the pulses. Observatories in Hawaii and Chile noted fluctuations in brightness, not random, but almost rhythmic. Periodic surges of light would ripple across the coma, as if some internal mechanism was releasing bursts of energy. The pattern repeated every few hours, enough to catch attention, but not enough to convince the skeptics. Most dismissed it as jets of gas erupting at intervals, caused by subsurface pockets exposed as the object rotated. Yet even those explanations sounded strained. Atlas was already challenging comet science. What unfolded in September, near Mars, would force scientists to reconsider everything. The first alerts did not come from official channels. Amateur astronomers, scouring the skies during Mars's opposition, noticed something unusual. Atlas suddenly flared with a spike in brightness far sharper than expected. Within hours, observatories from Spain to Australia confirmed the change. It was not just a casual brightening, but a sustained venting, as though the object was releasing energy on a massive scale. The timing could not have been better, or more unsettling. Because Atlas was passing directly by Mars, its proximity meant that spacecraft orbiting the planet could capture data far richer than what Earth-based telescopes could achieve. Teams at NASA quickly diverted the attention of the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and MAVEN probe toward the visitor. Their instruments locked onto the green-tinged coma, analyzing its spectra and tracking its path across the Martian sky. For the first time in history, an interstellar object was being studied not just from Earth, but from the vantage point of another planet. Official briefings came cautiously. NASA spokespeople described Atlas as an unusually active comet, while ESA emphasized the need for further analysis. Their statements were bland, careful, almost deliberately understated. Yet behind the scenes, something else was unfolding. Internal logs began to leak, showing that scientific teams were not merely intrigued, they were stunned. The trajectory data, streamed in from both ground telescopes and Martian probes, did not add up. Atlas was accelerating. The change was not small, not a subtle drift mistaken for noise, but a measurable increase in velocity that could not be accounted for by solar heating or outgassing alone. Within closed circles, the tone shifted from curiosity to alarm. A comet could brighten, fracture, or even break apart, but a comet was not supposed to alter its own speed in a deliberate fashion. This was something different, something that forced even the most skeptical minds to whisper the unthinkable. Perhaps 3I/ATLAS was not just a comet. The tipping point came only days later. As Atlas drifted past the Martian orbit, Instruments picked up a sudden, undeniable shift. On September 14th, the interstellar traveler executed a deviation so sharp that analysts at first believed it to be a data glitch. The plotted course veered, not subtly, but with precision, like a spacecraft adjusting its trajectory with thrusters. In the world of comet science, this was an impossibility. The numbers told the story. Atlas registered a velocity increase measured at nearly 0.1 meters per second squared. To the casual ear, the figure might sound small, but in astrophysics, it was staggering. Solar radiation pressure could not account for it. Outgassing jets, even in the most violent episodes, would never sustain such clean acceleration. Something was driving the object, and it was happening in real time. Mars orbiters, positioned perfectly to monitor the encounter, added another layer of strangeness. Maven's magnetometer picked up faint, erratic pulses in the plasma environment surrounding the object. Meanwhile, radio instruments detected bursts that seemed almost structured, like short packets of transmission rather than the white noise of space. The signals repeated at irregular intervals, as if broadcasting on a frequency yet to be deciphered. Comparisons to Oumuamua came immediately. That first interstellar visitor had also shown unexplained acceleration, sparking years of debate about light sails and artificial origins. But Oumuamua's anomaly was subtle, measured long after it had passed Earth by. With Atlas, the impossible was happening in plain view, not at the edge of the solar system, but within reach of our most advanced spacecraft. The crisis was no longer academic. What scientists were observing near Mars was physics-breaking, yes, but it was also unsettlingly close. If Atlas was emitting energy, if it was maneuvering, then it was doing so inside the sphere of our planetary neighborhood. Humanity was no longer studying a distant anomaly, but confronting a presence that seemed capable of choosing its own path. For the first time, the question was no longer whispered but spoken aloud. If this was not a comet, then what exactly was passing by the red planet? In the aftermath of the trajectory shift, the scientific world split into two camps. One insisted the anomaly must be natural, the result of some hidden mechanism not yet understood. The other began to whisper what only months earlier would have been unthinkable, that ATLAS was displaying behavior indistinguishable from technology. The data left little room for comfort. Thermal readings from telescopes revealed an output that far exceeded models. The amount of heat radiating from ATLAS was inconsistent with sunlight striking ice. Something inside seemed to be generating power, not bleeding it away. Spectral analysis showed pulses in brightness that were disturbingly regular. Every 11 minutes, a faint spike emerged in the light curve, repeating like a ticking clock. Astronomers had seen jets before, but never in such consistent rhythm. A natural object rotates irregularly, its outgassing chaotic and messy. Atlas seemed almost engineered to keep time. Then there was the tail. Instead of the graceful plume of dust and gas that trails ordinary comets, ATLAS carried with it a plasma wake unlike anything ever seen. It stretched and shimmered, disturbed by invisible currents, as if the object was interacting with the solar wind in ways no one could explain. Probes tracking the wake reported traces of ionized particles accelerating in unnatural directions, aligned not with the sun but seemingly with Mars itself. The effect defied comet physics. It looked purposeful. Theories erupted overnight. Natural explanations tried to keep pace. Some suggested exotic outgassing, pockets of frozen carbon dioxide trapped within fractured chambers, venting in bursts that coincidentally produced a clock-like rhythm. Others proposed micrometeoroid impacts, striking with perfect timing to explain the pulses. A few even speculated Atlas might be hollow, its internal structure resonating like a bell as it tumbled through space. Each idea struggled against the same problem. Coincidence stacked upon coincidence. The simplest answer, as many quietly admitted, was also the most unsettling. Among those willing to speak openly was Avi Loeb, already a controversial figure after arguing that Oumuamua might have been artificial. In a statement circulated to the press, he described Atlas's maneuver as consistent with active propulsion and suggested the possibility of light sail technology adjusting its course. To others, it resembled a probe, a craft capable of altering speed and broadcasting signals. Loeb's comments were dismissed by officials as speculative, yet leaked documents revealed his theories were being quietly considered in private meetings at both NASA and the Pentagon. One hypothesis stirred even deeper unease. Some analysts proposed that ATLAS was not a solitary object at all, but part of a broader phenomenon. A delivery craft, they speculated, scattering smaller fragments along its route. A theory strengthened by earlier reports of companion objects trailing near the interstellar visitor. If true, ATLAS might not be simply passing through. It could be leaving something behind. Mars's probes provided the most compelling and most controversial evidence. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter captured bursts of energy radiating from the comet-like body. MAVEN's magnetometer registered faint disturbances in Mars's upper atmosphere, like ripples spreading through invisible water. The most startling claim emerged from a dataset leaked anonymously. A TLAS, during one of its brightest flares, emitted a directed burst of radiation aligned straight toward Mars. The signal was narrow, sharp, and impossible to dismiss as random. For a moment, it looked less like a comet and more like a transmitter. If the data were accurate, the implications were staggering. Was Atlas signaling Mars, testing its instruments against the planet, or had humanity simply stumbled into a performance meant for someone or something else? No agency confirmed the claim, but silence itself spoke volumes. Requests for the raw telemetry were ignored. ESA refused to comment. NASA released only carefully prepared summaries, stripping out the most anomalous points. As the debate raged, some researchers began to look beyond modern science for context. The appearance of a green star near Mars, they noted, had echoes in the ancient world. Babylonian records described celestial visitors blazing by the red planet, often followed by years of upheaval. Roman texts spoke of omens, a greenish light lingering near Mars, marking the rise and fall of leaders. Scholars pointed out that in almost every culture, Mars was tied to war, power, and transformation. When a foreign light approached it, history seemed to shift. The parallels were haunting. Atlas, with its emerald-tinged coma and pulsing bursts, fit those descriptions with eerie precision. Historians asked whether ancient peoples, lacking telescopes but not imagination, had witnessed similar events thousands of years ago. Did they record another interstellar visitor, perhaps even ATLAS itself on a previous passage, in the language of myth and prophecy? For scientists, the historical echoes only deepened the sense of unease. Atlas had already shattered theories of comet composition. Now it was bending physics, venting heat like a machine, pulsing with rhythms that resembled a heartbeat, and interacting with Mars in ways too pointed to dismiss. Every fresh dataset made it harder to cling to natural explanations. Every silence from official agencies made it easier to believe something was being hidden. The evidence was fragmentary, incomplete, but together it formed a picture both mesmerizing and terrifying. An object from another star system had entered our neighborhood, and instead of passing quietly, it was making its presence known. The only question left was whether humanity was brave enough to admit what it was seeing. In the wake of the Mars encounter, the official narrative was carefully managed. NASA released a statement describing Atlas as a comet behaving unusually, nothing more. The European Space Agency echoed the same cautious tone, noting that further analysis was needed. Their words were technically accurate, but they carried the hollow ring of diplomacy. No mention was made of acceleration, no acknowledgement of radio-like bursts. The most extraordinary data, collected by Mars orbiters, was locked away, buried under layers of classification. Requests from independent researchers for the raw measurements were quietly denied. ESA, normally open with its archives, refused to release high-resolution telemetry from its Mars satellites. In Moscow, Beijing, and New Delhi, agencies that might have had their own observations fell into complete silence. The world's great spacefaring nations, so often eager to showcase their achievements, now behaved as though they had nothing to say. The absence of commentary was more revealing than any official briefing. Leaks began to fill the void. A Pentagon memo, circulated within defense circles and later leaked to journalists, warned that ATLAS may exhibit maneuver capability. Another report from European defense analysts modeled a scenario in which the object was actively adjusting its trajectory. Even more alarming was a reference in one leak to an internal AI model used to classify space risks. The model had flagged Atlas not as a natural hazard, but as a non-natural risk object, a category previously reserved for satellites and spacecraft. For the public, the vacuum of information became a breeding ground for speculation. Online communities erupted with theories. Some claimed Atlas was a mothership, a vast interstellar craft testing humanity's response. Others insisted it was a probe, sent to observe Mars or Earth before moving on. A few argued it was a beacon, transmitting signals not to us, but to someone else. Theories spiraled faster than agencies could contain them. NASA and ESA found themselves accused of covering up the contact moment. Hashtags spread across social media, demanding disclosure. Commentators on talk shows spoke of betrayal, warning that silence from institutions could only mean the truth was too shocking to reveal. For ordinary people, the mystery of ATLAS became something larger than science. It became a symbol of secrets, of possibility, and of a world on the brink of revelation.